في اللحظة اللي بتخطي فيها الحدود بتصبح لاجئ وحياتك في ايدين آخر.
Good evening. These uprisings, the citizen revolutions we've been covering from the Middle East over to North Africa, have been popping up like thunderstorms.
The situation is unfolding in Libya. Witnesses are hearing gunfire and blasts from rocket-propelled grenades.
You have these moments when an old world dies and a new one is not yet born. And this is a very dangerous and perilous moment.
The whole region seems to be on fire right now.
Now it's Syria.
Syria exploded.
Thousands of Syrians have lost their lives in the conflict between forces loyal to President Bashar al-Assad and fighters opposed to his rule.
Insurgency has taken a turn towards a much more significant Islamic radicalization.
ISIS militants.
Syria's newest conflict, it's war within a war.
For 3 years, we've been watching the bloodshed in Syria. The same images of war and violence seem to spread across every channel and every headline. The result is fear. Fear of terrorism, fear of Islam, fear of the Middle East. Drowned out was the coverage of the 3 million Syrians who have been forced to flee their country, creating the largest refugee crisis since World War II. As filmmakers, we immerse ourselves in humanitarian issues, living the reality we are attempting to understand. And in 2010, we created a nonprofit to help bring these stories to life. We hope to do this with the Syrian refugee crisis, to take the time to hear from refugees firsthand. When the world is turning away and they've lost everything, what does their future look like? It took over a year to make it possible, but with Jordan's approval, the UN agreed to register us and give us a tent inside of a refugee camp in Jordan. It was the first time this has ever been done.
Of all districts, where to put you, we don't want to put you in a congested area because that's just completely crazy. So we're saying here, the project that you're doing, I don't think has been done before in a refugee camp anywhere in the world. For want of a better term, a sociological experiment or as a piece of research in terms of how refugee camps operate and run, I think it'll be very useful in a way that will help UNHCR and other agencies understand the dynamics and kind of the life and the beat of a camp. Your interactions with people may not always be positive and good, just be sensible.
We were traveling to Jordan, a country that has taken in an estimated 1.4 million Syrians in just 4 years. The equivalent of the US providing refuge for half the population of Mexico. And Jordan is a small country about the size of Indiana. On its northern border is the second largest refugee camp in the world. Just 7 miles from Syria, it's providing shelter to 85,000 refugees.
filmmaker again? عم بتصور.
لحظة.
Do you have any kind of ID identification?
فضلك انظر في المرآة.
Okay, these are the documents.
We were going to be living in Zatari for the next month. Aside from paying for what we received, we were registered in the same way and given the same supplies as refugees. It would be up to us to figure out how to navigate life here.
I'm gonna get so lost around this camp. Is this home? Yes.
هسه في نسوان شلون بدها تصير وتطلع؟ شو دخل اني حطيت شني هم اللي حطوا.
We don't want to anger anyone on our first day. Is it a problem that he...
بعرف شو عم بحكي؟
أنا هيني ترجمت له. كيف
تحطها غير هون يا احمد. وين بدنا نحط؟ في 50 60 تعال مو فاضي. هذا مو فاضي. مو فاضي.
Right off the bat, we had some anger and confusion about Zach and me filming women and what we are doing next to the kitchen where the women hang out. But once we promised we wouldn't film anyone without the permission, things quickly calmed down. Right away, people came to help us set up our tent. We couldn't tell if they were refugees or aid workers, but it turned out they lived in the tents and trailers right next door.
It's like
So like this.
Yes, yes. Here, you hold the shovel. Hey, first. Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, I gotta
بصير شرف خليه يشرف.
شكرا.
انا عفوا. شد عنا. ايه شد ايه. Yes, very good. Very good.
I think they're making fun of my hammering skills, but you know. Okay.
غاز. Yes, tell me. أنبوبة. غاز.
it needs a cylinder.
Yeah.
عم بقول له عشان ليش تتدفى؟ عشان ليش تدفى انه الغاز مش على وراها؟
عم نستنى الدور، انتوا بتحكوا لنا
ما فيش نحط عليها حديده نتدفى جخه. كله.
He has a solution for you. He could get us something called like they call it a melon. It looks like a melon. Lend us.
ابو يعني هون.
Okay.
ما في مشكله. يا اخي مو جيراننا صاروا. مع كرت فوضيه؟ الرسول وصى بالجار.
He's our neighbor.
Yeah, he's telling you that we're neighbors and we should.
شكرا.
He will give us.
هاي غاز، محاطي غاز.
شكرا.
اهلا وسهلا.
Oh, there is. Good thing we all forgot toothpaste, so that's helpful.
He's teaching you how to use them.
I know how to use that, Raoul.
This is bourbon. Salt. Lentil. Oh, mice get opens this and they start eating. طب رجع لنا اياه بالكرتون عشان ما تفوت فار عندنا.
عادي.
Let's put it back inside this box so the mice will come inside.
Let's see what we know. This is Zatari Camp. It's about 2.5 miles by 1.5 miles. And it's broken into 12 districts here. And then our tent is here in District 5. These camps like Zatari exist all over the world, in 40 different countries. Wherever the camps are, they have to follow the laws of that host country, even though many are set up and managed by the United Nations. In Zatari, the UN works with over 33 nonprofits to run the camp. It's a massive operation to provide tents and trailers, trucks of clean water, daily food distributions, hospitals and community centers, and even school up to the 12th grade. Zatari is patrolled by the Jordanian police, and they have the final say on security in the camp.
Why are they telling us it's too dangerous now? Well, that was just security. They stopped by our tent, and they're saying it's too dangerous for us to stay overnight. So, the one person we can talk to is the local district leader. Just gotta pack our stuff up and go to his tent. Is there any way you can ask security to let us stay overnight in the camp? Do you have any idea why they would have changed their minds?
ما بخبي عليك، في عندنا قطاعين طرق. يعني قطاعين طرق عصابات، العصابات هاي بالليل تستلمش الجناحات. بجوز انه تعتبر انه معهم مصاري هدول يجوا لهم بالليل. او لا ولا شيء. انتبهت كيف؟ بقى السلطات بتخاف عليهم لسلامتهم، بالنهار في عيوب بتشوفهم، اي واحد بيتعرض لهم مكشوف، اما بالليل مو مكشوف صار.
After all of our planning, security changed their mind, and we couldn't stay overnight in the camp.
By District 5.
It was for our own safety, so we had to head to the town of Mafraq, about 7 miles from Zatari. It was disappointing, but it actually showed us a completely different side of the refugee crisis in Jordan. 80% of refugees here live outside of camps in urban cities, relying on Jordanian generosity. But in a country with high unemployment and limited resources, how long can people continue to welcome in new refugees? We had a hard time finding anywhere to stay. The city was so crowded with Syrians, rent prices had tripled since the war began 3 years ago. Luckily, Ibrahim found us a storage room in the back of an office building where we could spend our nights for the next month.
Thank you.
We're making some tea for you.
Yeah. It wasn't long before people started coming into our tent to ask us questions or just say hi. Right away, we were a new source of amusement for Raouf and his friends.
Oh, yeah.
It really started to feel like a routine. Every day, leave for Mafraq late at night, and then be back in the camp again by 6 a.m.
One of the first people we came close with was this guy named Ismail, and it was wild because Ismail looked just like my dad in college and even acted like him. They both loved to cook. What? You're a master. Beautiful. Even had a very similar sense of humor. Before the war, Ismail was studying at a university in Damascus to be a French teacher. And as soon as the war started, he had to flee the country, leaving everything he knew behind. He was one of the first refugees in Zatari when it opened 2 years ago. Why did you decide to leave Syria?
ليش قررت تترك سوريا؟
كنت خايف على أهلي.
He was afraid of his family.
Was there a particular, like, when did you choose to? Was there a reason, something that happened?
في أي شيء معين صار قررت فيه إنك تترك سوريا؟
اللي خلاني أقرر إني أترك سوريا أنا قبل بيوم من القصف قبل بيوم كنت أقول مستحيل أطلع برات سوريا. مستحيل يعني. ثاني يوم صار قصف. سحبت حالي جيت لهون. لما تطلع بالليل. يعني إذا شافوك ممكن إنه يضربوا عليك. ماشي كان في منطقة فيها أحجار كثير وعر يعني. كان في أولاد صغار عم تقطع وتقع. أولاد صغار أعطوهم منوم مشان ما يصيروا يبكوا على الطريق. الصوت ما فيه بس امشي ولا نفس.
Every month, tens of thousands of people like Ismail attempt the journey out of Syria. 95% seek refuge in Egypt, Lebanon, Iraq, Turkey, and Jordan. With 80% of Syria's infrastructure destroyed by the ongoing violence, families often spend their entire savings on guides who will smuggle them through the war zone and eventually over the border in the middle of the night.
We can proudly say that when they come here, that is when they can actually breathe and actually relax and sleep. It's important to see people, check those who need immediate assistance. The very first step is that they're receiving water. They've been traveling, yet again another step in a long journey towards safety. The second thing is the vaccination. They need full protection.
These services rely on international aid and private donations. Sadly, the UN has only received a little over half of the funding that donor countries have promised for this crisis.
يلا شباب شباب يلا
التلفزيون هاي؟ قطع التلفزيون؟
بلا والساوند.
سمعت ان كنتوا بالمفوضيه بتستلموني وصلني خبر هيك. المخيم كله مطبوط، في مجموعه من الاجانب بدهم حابين يعيشوا احنا مثل ما احنا عايشين.
مستغربين.
اي مستغربين هيك شيء مثير للدهشه.
They're astonished like how Americans want to live seemed like
Astonished in a good way or
no, in a good way.
Oh, okay.
لما نسمع كلمة لاجئ شو بنفكر نحن كعرب؟
صار مجبر على الطلعة من بلده ومن داره، ولا معه مصاري، يمكن يجبر بس هو وعياله، بس بوعيهم، هذا اللي اجبار لي. مش قررت أنا أغادر سوريا، أنا أجبرت على مغادرة سوريا. أنا بسوريا كنت أعتبر من أبناء الطبقة الوسطى أو يعني ما فوق الوسطى، يعني من واحد عايش ببيت فيه كل أسباب الرفاهية لا يجي يقعد بخيمة ما بملك شيء.
فما أحبش يعني ضليتني دمع يمكن شهر ونص وأنا بقول أبكي، يعني حيالك شغلة تبكيني حتى تعودت. ما أحبش أطلع. أولادي أول فترة أهملتهم، أولادي هم يأكلوا لحالهم، هم يغيروا لحالهم، يعني ما اهتمتش لأولادي بالبداية كثير كانت. ما أحبش فعلا أغادر الخيمة، ما كنت أحب أغادر الخيمة.
وضع سيء يعني أول 3 شهور 4 شهور صعب وصدمة جدا، يعني لولا الإيمان بالله ممكن أفكر بالانتحار. أول شيء عاطفيا حطمنا، أول شيء العاطفة نسيناها أمام مصاعب الحياة وصعوبات الحياة، نسيناها. العاطفة نوب، يعني ما عادش في مجال إنك تفكر بالعاطفة. أنا عمري 35 سنة 36 سنة، اللي بنيته ب35 سنة ب36 اتهدم، ومطلوب مني عائلة من 4 أنفار، فكيف راح يكون شعوري؟ أكيد راح يكون شعوري صعب ومحطم نفسيا.
ولا شيء. ما جبت معي غير عباية وجلابية السوق بس، ما جبت معي غير هدول الغرضين. بالطريق بردت، قلت لها لمرة، قلت لك مشان الله والله العظيم ميتة من البرد، أعطيني كنزة. أعطتني كنزة ولبستها.
Thank you for inviting us to your home. And actually, we haven't even seen many of these types of food. Could they explain to us what they are?
أيوة. وهي دوقك زيت الزعتر. بسم الله.
And this is olive
أيوة.
oil
تفضل.
and thyme.
أيوة. حبيبتي يلا.
So where did you learn to do all of these handicrafts?
وين تعلمتي تعملي كل هاي الاشياء اللي انت عم تعمليها الحرفيه؟
أنا بسوريا كنت أشتغل هيك، كمان بيتي بسوريا كمان فيه هيك شغلات كثيرة إلي. أكيد. كمان إيه والله.
Does it cost a lot to make these?
ولا شيء. ضلني هيك امشي بالزعتري تلم اكياس النايلون اللي بلمون يسوون اياها بالمفوضيه، لما من الطريق يضحكوا علي الناس، بس ما يعني ما عادي. اي قصان واشتغل فيهم. ضليتني هيك رايحة وجاي شي 3 أشهر. قامت صار معرض بنفس المؤسسة. اشتغلت مزهرية، عجبتها لوحدة أجنبية، عطتني عليها 50 دينار. هلا بيهمني اشتغل حتى يعني أبدع. يعني الحمد لله ساعدتنا على العيشة هون، الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله.
With Jordan's high unemployment rate, it's almost impossible for refugees to get visas to legally work. But inside the contained space of the camp, Jordan is more lenient, allowing more informal businesses to start. This is how Ali sold her vase to an aid worker. The law also prevents refugees from leaving the camp, unless they have a Jordanian sponsor. But in order to make a living, Syrian refugees overcome this barrier by partnering with Jordanians, who bring supplies in and out of the camp. Syrians are finding ways to work and be productive by any means possible.
I mean, here you have 100,000 people in front of you, and all what they're begging for is to be recognized as human beings and not be just served some assistance which may not always be adapted to what they want. People were showing us that they had a different concept of the space, a different concept of how their settlement should look like. We were building a camp, they were building a city.
In just 2 years, Syrian refugees have developed a multi-million-dollar economy. At the center of the camp is a thriving market street jokingly named the Champs-Élysées.
Riding on a donkey through the Champs-Élysées.
With over 3,000 businesses, you can buy almost anything. The UN has never seen a camp's economy expand so quickly. Many camps forbid this kind of growth. But Syrians were determined to rebuild their new lives. And the UN has even begun to embrace this vision, putting Zatari in a league all of its own. In addition to this bustling economy, our neighbors are investing in their homes. They're moving trailers to be near family and building makeshift houses that have bedrooms, gardens, private bathrooms, and even fountains. This kind of growth in Zatari is remarkable. But without the workings of a city to support it, it can only go so far. In Zatari, there are no household-level water and sewage systems. And the electrical grid is completely overloaded.
there are limits to what we as humanitarians can do. We are good as humanitarians, as we are, as the system is, to provide first aid. But we don't have the capacity to work on medium and long-term strategies. We can pretend it, but we don't have it.
Nonprofits and the UN don't have the expertise to set up a city. They need support from city planners and private companies to effectively run Zaatari. But the world hasn't stepped up to support Jordanians, the UN, or Syrians to pursue this kind of vision. Currently, Zaatari remains a short-term solution for a long-term problem.
As we headed into Mafraq, it was almost too much to think that Zaatari is only a fraction of the refugees in Jordan. Most Syrians live outside of the camp, and one was our neighbor, Gassoon. Like so many of the families here, she's the head of her household. 1 in 4 families are led by a woman because so many men are still in Syria.
When did you make that journey? Did you make it by yourself from Syria to Mafraq?
أنا أم ل3 أطفال ولحالي وإجيت أنا وياهم مباشرة إجينا لحالنا يعني ما كان معي لا أخ ولا أب ولا أم ولا أي حدا. أكبر تحدي إلي يعني أنا أولادي بعدهم صغار وبدي أحاول إني أربيهم ويتعلموا كمان.
It's not easy, from a gender perspective, many women are expected to stay inside the home. Of course, if you have a female-headed household, the woman doesn't really have a choice. She has to leave the home to find some kind of support for her family, financial or otherwise.
أنا بسوريا كنت أشتغل بمهنة التمريض. سكنت بالمفرق وسجلت اسمي بمعظم الجمعيات الخيرية. كان صراحة الدعم قليل شوي يعني مجرد أنه يسد بس الحاجة المعيشية اليومية. غلت ذاكرتي أنه أنا شو هو الشيء اللي بقدر أشتغله بحيث أني ما أطلع برات البيت وأضل مع الأولاد أحميهم وأدير بالي عليهم. فدارت ببالي الفكرة هاي اللي كنت متعلمتها قبل بالمدرسة. المحجبات المفروض انه يكون في شيء رفع الحجاب غير الشعر. انا بشبهه كمثل التاج اللي كانوا يلبسوا قبل الاميرات يعني. تقريبا بتاخذ مني وقت حوالي من نص ساعة ل 40 دقيقة وبعدين تقريبا ببيع بالشهر حوالي 200 حبة. خلصنا.
واو. Even now, when you have to provide for your whole family, is there ever, would you ever think about going to Zaatari where they give you free food or they give you different services?
لا.
Gassoon arrived in Jordan before the refugee camps were set up. She chooses not to relocate to Zaatari because she believes she can build a more traditional home for her kids outside of the camp, where they can go to public Jordanian schools.
في المدارس اللي خصصها جلالة الملك عبد الله الثاني للسوريين فبيداوموا بعد الظهر بعد الدوام الأطفال الأردنيين. الحمد لله يعني في شوية اهتمام. الحمد لله هم بالمدرسة يعني.
Salam alaikum. Who drew on this? What is this? Translate from Red Side. We have graffiti on our... Oh yeah. I can't tell. It's at least it's a heart. That's nice. It says Raouf's tent.
No, really?
Does it really? Raouf. This is Raouf. Say Raouf's tent. Raouf.
Abdel Raouf. Did you do these? Oh,
shukran.
Oh, thank you. Shukran.
My man Raouf, let's get inside. It's cold.
Yeah, it's cold. Aren't you freezing? Did you clean our tent?
نظفت الخيمة كمان؟
إيه.
Yes.
You cleaned it?
Can we?
That's awesome, Raouf.
Oh, Raouf. Shukran.
Raouf, sit on the mattress. Sit on the mattress.
Dude, this kid is the man.
Did you go to school in Syria?
كنت تروح بالمدرسة بسوريا؟
إيه.
Yes.
What grade were you in when you left?
أي صف كنت بسترك؟
الصف الثالث.
So, what do you want to be when you grow up?
دكتور.
You want to be a doctor? Nice. Have you always wanted to be a doctor?
متعالج.
He wants to like help the injured people.
You want to help the injured people?
بدك تساعد المصابين؟
Like the people that back in Syria?
زي اللي بسوريا المصابين بسوريا. Yes.
There's a lot of school before you could become a doctor.
في رابع، في خامس، في سادس، في سابع، في بكالوريا، في كتير.
And you're willing to do it all?
وانت بدك تعملها كلها؟ انت بدك تكون دكتور؟
إيه.
Yeah. Wow. Well, maybe can you be my doctor when you're a doctor? I would love to have a doctor.
بده اياك تكون انت دكتورة بس. تصير دكتور.
It's been almost 2 years now, and Raouf still doesn't want to go to school. He says he doesn't want to go until he's back at home in Syria. We've been trying to convince him to start again. But the sad truth of it is, only half of refugee kids are getting an education.
What's up, Raouf? Hey, are you gonna go today?
راح تروح اليوم على المدرسة؟ He doesn't.
No?
He doesn't.
You don't know?
ما بتعرف؟
Don't you have what time is it?
It's almost 12.
It's almost 12. Yeah.
30 minutes. Why don't you want to go today? Why don't you go?
بس ما بلاقيش الصف كله مليان. ما بعرف الصف كمان.
They'll help you find your class, Raouf.
So right when you walk in, and we can even walk with you down there if you want. And then when you walk in, the organization will help you, show you where your class is, and you're all registered, so you won't have anything to worry about.
No. Raouf, like why don't you want to go to school?
ليه ما بدك تروح المدرسة؟
Because you can go to school if you want to go.
بتقدر تروح إذا جعبالك تروح يعني الدار أنت ما مريت فيه.
ميت من الجوع من الصبح رحت.
Why don't you eat right now and then let's go?
بكونوا خلصوا.
لا على 12 ببلشوا.
خلصوا الدراسة.
If I promise you we could be there in 10 minutes. We
Right
can
now.
walk right now.
هلا بتاخذ
We can walk there in 10 minutes. Would you
10 دقايق. متأكد؟ إذا هي على الطريق ساعة.
1 hour. للمدرسة اللي هون.
Why don't we go? We'll prove you wrong.
يلا
Let's go right now. We'll see.
10 دقايق يلا.
رايح.
رايح وين؟
المدرسة. لا.
ايش اي فرق ثالث بدك تطلع رابع ولا بدك تسجل ثالث؟ ثالث عبد الرؤوف
شويه لما يهدوا هيا اخوه ما هو اخوه
وبعدين تعالوا
رايك تحكي تقعد هيك ترتاح شويه وتشرب لك شيء وبعدين نرجع؟
تعال يلا تعال رؤوف. أول سنة كان هو يرغب للمدرسة، يروح الصبح يفيق لحاله يلبس وبده يروح على المدرسة لو قبل الوقت. لما كنا بسوريا صار قصف، اجت قذيفة بالمدرسة، ما كانوا محددين هدف، خلص المهم يعاقبوا البلد بسبة هدول، هيك اللي صار، يضربوا، تيجي بالبيوت، اجت بالبيوت واجت بالمدارس واجت بالشوارع، ما استثنى حدا يعني. فرؤوف ثاني يوم عم يقول لي يابا لا تقول لي روح المدرسة، هاي اجت القذائف فيها، لا تقول لي روح المدرسة، خلص فجروها للمدرسة. صارت عنده عقدة من المدارس يعني بسبب هالشيء يعني هيك. فتحتوا مواجه انت وياه على كان هم اولادي والله.
I had no idea that it was like, it's trauma based, not like it's, I mean, I think there's like so many factors involved now, but he's just scared and like he has a reason to be.
Yeah, no 10-year-old should ever have to go through that. Jesus. You get some water, Rauf.
Your life is way more complicated than we thought it was. What's up, buddy? Did you beat Zach at soccer?
Was it too bad?
You beat him up?
ذبحته بالطابة شطوه.
Yep.
ايه؟
I don't really know how you film right now.
ذبحته. Yeah, you want to talk to me?
I guess it's like a combination of like a lot of things that all come together at one time. It's like always just right under the surface where you meet so many people who are just like always so friendly, always talking. It's like you don't even notice anything's wrong at all. And then you just hear more about actually like just like one fact about one person and you're like, that is something that I could never even imagine. I don't really want to talk about it.
زكي زيك.
نعم. يلا هو جاي.
اليوم
اليوم أول مرة في مؤتمر جنيف 2 دون أن يحقق أي تقارب رسمي هو بين وفدي النظام والمعارضة اللذين التقيا للمرة الأولى منذ بدء النزاع في سوريا قبل سنوات 3.
وحتى المنظمات الإنسانية لم تخف امتعاضها، بل عبرت عن استيائها من عدم التوصل إلى اتفاق يساعد على إيصال المساعدات الإنسانية إلى آلاف من السوريين المحاصرين في مناطق ساخنة تحت رحمة النيران.
Within minutes, the failure of the peace conference in Geneva, 2,000 miles away, set off a camp-wide demonstration. The refugees were voicing their disapproval of the ongoing war in Syria and showing support for those left behind. And even though these protests will eventually disperse, the fighting just 7 miles away rages on.
This is the tip of the iceberg in Zaatari. It's where you can see and feel the conflict actually. You hear the fighting.
Which we're not.
At times our offices here have shook because of the closeness of mortar fire. You never get a mental break from that. You're always thinking about who's still at home. People are trying to build a normal life, but are finding it tough.
يعني هيك بدي اقول لك شلون مثل الحلم، مثل شيء ما صار.
احلى شهيد يا يما، احلى شهيد. فتصوب برجله، سحبوه من البيت وربطوه بالدبابة وجروه ورا الدبابة وهو حي. إصابته برجله وهو حي جروه في الدبابة. جروه مسافة حوالي 200 متر، حطوه على قارعة الطريق وردوا رجعوا خلصوا عليه. هاي مو جزء قصير عن الحادثة. طبعا مش هو الوحيد اللي كان يصير فيه هيك.
الجرح اللي بقلبي
أبي جروحنا كلنا مش بس هي. مش شهيد. روح أبي.
دقدق على كل باب، سلم عليهم بالصبح وغياب، يابا وان شافك ولي فالروح قلو انا المجروح، قلو ولي فالروح بالروح مصايب، يوم على يوم لو طالت الفرقة نسيت انا يوم، ما نسيت انا الرفقة، ما نسيت انا الرفقة، نذرا علي ما بدلك بالغير، ريحتها لي منك يا سهل الخير، بالله لو رحت المسايا طير، سلم عليهم طالت الفرقة، مسي عليهم طالت الفرقة.
الشباب لما بيتواجدوا بالمناطق اللي بيعرفوا انه هون كان في رفقاتنا او هاي حينا، فبيحاولوا بيصوروا اللي بيقدروا عليه وبيعرضوه على اليوتيوب. هلا البيت انا شفته على اليوتيوب، البيت مش مهدوم، البيت كله موجود، بس ما في شيء نهائيا ما في. قول يا ريت انه انا اكون طير، اروح اشوف شو في وشو صاير وارجع.
مشتاقة لأولادي، مشتاقة لبناتي، مشتاقة لأحفادي. إيه، أكتب كل شيء على الحيطان. يعني هيك اللي يحس فيه أصير أكتب. بيضحك علي جوزي، يقول لي هذا مسطرة المجانين، قل له معلش. يجي بده يمحيهم، يقول لي شلون ما كان بدك تمحيهم؟ قل له لا، مالي محيا شيء. إذا محوا ما راح يمحوا من قلبي.
And what is this again?
واحد ما يلوش حدا.
ايش هو كان؟
واحد ما يلوش حدا.
And why is he lonely?
ليه لحاله؟ ليه لحاله عايش؟
لحاله هيك.
ليه؟
أمه ماتت وأخواته هيك.
كلهم ماتوا؟
Is this your man who lost all of his children?
Yes.
Oh. Do you know anyone who's like this, who lost all of their children?
تعرف حدا هيك خسر كل اولاده وامه؟ مين؟
كل.
Yes, everyone.
انت لما بتجيك انسان محطم نفسيا ومارق بظروف صعبه، اهم شيء تزرع فيه اراده الحياه، تزرع فيه الثقه بالنفس. فيش داعي انك تقعد تحط الحزن قاعد بهالخيمه، يعني بدك تقعد وتفكر هيك راح تموت، يعني راح تموت من الكآبه. لكل اللاجئين اللي اجوا لهون على الزعتر او اللي طلعوا على اي بلد من بلدان اللجوء، اكيد هاي اللي مرينا فيه نقطة تحول بحياتنا. انا كنت ناوي اطلع برا المخيم، انه قلت لك صحت لي اكثر من فرصة عمل بعمان وبجرش وبإربد بمهنة الحلاقة، وانا حبيت اظني هون جوا المخيم، يعني من باب انه بلسمت لجراح هاللاجئين اللي هون. احنا طبيعة عملنا مع الارسي، نحن فريق عمل ميداني اوترش، بيساعد هالناس هاي اللي جاية من ظروف حرب ومن ظروف قاسية. بنفتل ما بين القرفانات، ما بين الخيم، بنعرفهم على الخدمات اللي بتقدمها الارسي. منظمة الارسي من المنظمات اللي بتعالج الجروح النفسية، الجروح اللي صايب النفس، اللي صايب القلب من جوا، مش الجروح الجسدية. بس احنا الاساسي عندنا النساء، لأنه النساء والأطفال هم ضحايا الحروب بالدرجة الأولى.
What do you do at the Women's Center?
مراكز نسائية. أول شيء بنستقبلهم على الساعة 11، بيعملوا اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد محاضرة نفسية أول نص ساعة، والثاني محاضرة صحية.
شكرا كمان مرة على جهودكم معنا، كل وحدة فيكم بتكون تاركة مليون شغلة وراها، برغم هيك اجت تشارك معنا.
بالمحاضرة يعني البنات فرحوا قلوبنا وقووا قلوبنا، تكون قلوبنا حزينة تلاقينا هيك يعني نتنشط شوي. الIRC بشبهه لبيتي الكبير والله العظيم اللي بدي اياه. أولادي اللي ماني قدرانة أحضنهم، بس الحمد لله الله بعت لي بنات بحضنهم دائما.
So you need to teach us so we can make it.
The center was clearly a home away from home for her, a place where she had friends, community, access to help. She'd even begun to work alongside the Jordanian staff, teaching art.
جوزي هون ما اشتغل، بس أنا اشتغلت. يعني الحمد لله ساعدتنا على العيشة هون، الحمد لله رب العالمين. يعني بتحسي شلون بدي أقول لك إنك إنسانة.
بالبداية المراكز النسائية احنا كنا يعني بسبب تهميش المرأة في سوريا ما كان في عليها إقبال على الإطلاق، على إنه الرجل هو القائم، الرجل هو اللي بيجيب، الرجل هو اللي بيشتغل، الرجل هو اللي بيصرف، الرجل هو اللي روح تعال تعال. اختلف الوضع يعني مطلقا عن سوريا. فصارت المرأة تشتغل، تروح وتيجي، تعمل، ترافق الرجل، تعاون الرجل، تساعده في أمور حياته. أحيانا حتى الرجل أحيانا كان يقوم بمقام المرأة في البيت. يعني ما وجدنا هذيك الصعوبة، تعاوننا على المعيشة وتغلبنا على جزء، خلينا نقول جزء يعني ليس بقليل.
بشجع كل وحدة صراحة بتحس بإنسانيتها، أول شيء بتحس بنفسها أنها عايشة بهالدنيا، وأنه مو بس الأم تطبخ وبتجلي وبتغسل، لا، يعني فيها مثلا مثل أي إنسان، حتى مثل الزلمة فيها تشتغل وتتعب وتحس حتى بقيمة القرش اللي بيعطوها إياه.
It's a very, very important point, opportunity out of crisis. And that's something we're underestimating. I mean, we're focusing so much in these responses. Yes, we have to make sure that people are warm, have proper shelter, food, water, and so on and so forth. That we're forgetting that it's really an opportunity. They have time to develop and think and learn things. And in that sense, we have obligation to invest in the human capital, which this presents.
هو صح، احنا بالنهاية بنعتبر لاجئين، يعني سواء بأي بلد ثاني، مو بس بالأردن، بس السوريين حتى وهم لاجئين شعب منتج، شعب عامل، عم يبدعوا بكل شيء وبأي مكان.
واحد اثنين ثلاثة أربعة خمسة أربعة
No. No, you're saying it out. I can't roll my R's. Wow.
Sean cheats.
Yes.
What is that? Have you ever seen an outfit like this?
It's really difficult. How do you say it's difficult? لا هذا علم جيش الحر اللي
هو علم حدود لفظت علم هاي بتعطيني سلاح داخلي بس
جبهة النصرة بياخذوا مجاهدين.
only another fight يكون جبهة النصرة.
بس بيقولوا للواحد ربك طالبك بيحطوا له قدائه، بيروح يفجر حاله بمبنى تبع الشرطة أمن شبيحة.
They go and they put like they use him as a human shield. They cover him with bombs.
Sitting there in the tent, we realized just how vulnerable Rauf and his friends really are. Watching them play these violent video games on their phones, at first it seemed like nothing, but for these kids, it's their reality. It's a reality that's knocking on the door right across the border. Extremist groups like al-Nusra and ISIS, they want to prey on and exploit kids who don't have access to education, kids who are in desperate situations. When we think about the people we've met in this camp, Rauf's family, Ismail, all of our friends here, they've chosen peace over war, to leave the fighting, to leave the extremists like ISIS, who they've even renamed Daesh, an insulting name derived from the word to trample. To help the kids here, Ismail and his friends volunteer at one of the many children's centers in the camp.
Very good, very good. كثير بشوف أولاد ما بتروح على المدارس اللي متعرضين لحالات الحرب، اللي خايف من الحرب، أو بنحكي عن شغلات بتهم الأطفال. مثل حكينا عن الدراسة مثلا اليوم عملنا شيء مسرحي عن الدراسة. كان متواضع هو يعني أول مرة بنعمل اليوم. عن ايش هو رح يكون؟ عن التدريس، لازم عن الطالب اللي ما بده يروح على المدرسة، اثنين عم ينصحوه.
Just like the women's centers, these children's centers are designed for trauma. They provide safe spaces, running simple activities that promote healing and help prevent children just like Rauf from slipping too far behind or not returning to school altogether. These centers don't replace schools, but instead get kids ready to go back to them.
كلها عم تبني، بقول لك أنا بكرة راجع على سوريا حتى ابني المجتمع. والشيء اللي يخوف إنه نرجع بجيل جاهل على سوريا. يعني الجيل هذا أخذ 10 سنين منك، بعد 10 سنين حتى ترجع تنشئ جيل متعلم. انه يكون شيء متعلق بالدراسه، انه يكون الطلاب اللي هون كلها تدرس بجوز، وهذا افضل حل يعني حتى انك تبني بلد.
After 4 years of the war, the burden of refugees in countries neighboring Syria has reached a breaking point, forcing them to often effectively close their borders to those fleeing the violence. 6.5 million people remain displaced from their homes inside of Syria. This is the moment where countries all over the world need to open their borders to Syrians in need, and to support host countries like Jordan, who have already welcomed so many, yet do not have the resources to provide the dignity refugees deserve. The housing, jobs, and education that will not only help stabilize the region, but help save an entire generation. The world has been so wrapped up in the violence. We've forgotten that this dignity is what creates lasting peace.
Today's the last day, but
6-4-8
we hope that too. No matter what, we will come and visit again. We will
رقم
see you
المكتب
again. Yeah.
نظرة العالم غالبا ما بتكون، او احنا مثل ما بنشوف احنا انه للعرب او للمسلمين بشكل ادق بتكون دائما هم ارهابيين او رجعيين او محبين للدماء بشكل عام. هل هاي النظرة صحيحة كانت بالنسبة لكم لقيتوها وهي موجودة فينا ولا لا؟
الشعب الموجود هون كله مسلم يعني، شفتوا منه هالاشياء اللي عم تظهر على الفضائيات عم تظهر يعني هيك قصدي.
No, not at all. And I think especially I think it was in conversation with you, we talked about how there are good and bad people in every society, and that's the same in the States as it is here.
Before we came, we had no idea what to expect. We didn't know if we'd be welcomed or if we'd be booted out of the camp, but we've been, from the very beginning, felt like people have, welcomed us in, and over time have become very close friends with all of you.
المواطنين كلياتهم دراويش بالدول العالم كلها وطيبين مثلنا مثلهم، بس الحكومات هي اللي عم تلعب فينا.
What we've really come away with is, we're not just Syrians and Americans, but we really are neighbors. And when neighbors are in need, hopefully they can come together and help each other.
It was humbling sitting there on that last day, being surrounded by people who have overcome so many obstacles. But despite everything, still have hope and generously open their homes and hearts to us. We're headed home, but our friends are not. On average, refugees are stuck in camps for 17 years. It would be a tragedy to lose the potential of this population when they are the solution. The ones who will rebuild Syria, or will work to rebuild their lives in countries that provide them homes. This isn't just the story of the millions fleeing war, or the neighboring countries who have welcomed them in. This is a story about breaking a cycle of distrust and violence, about creating understanding. Because as neighbors, how we choose to respond to this crisis will affect all of us.